Shalom, welcome to my channel, the Hebrew Bible. This is Moses Gumadi, and in this video we'll talk about the revelation of God at Mount Sinai, Har Sinai, the greatest event ever in history, till date unsurpassed. Okay, and we're going to talk about also some of the experiences the Israelites experienced there at Mount Sinai. For example, synesthesia. I will mention that in the end. I will also talk about the timing of this revelation and the sequence in which the revelation progressed and why, etc., and finally how it was revealed, and various opinions of the rabbis and the teachers about how this has taken place. So this is a very interesting, detailed video. It will be slightly longer than usual, but please pay attention if you would like to know about this subject. Let's start with the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verse 1, where we read that in the third month, the children of Israel, going forth from the land of Egypt, they came to the wilderness of Sinai. B'chodesh HaShalishi, in the third new moon, which is the third month. Okay. The Bnei Israel, Eretz Mitzrayim, they came, Bayom Hazeh Ba'u Midbar Sinai. So they came to Midbar Sinai, which is the wilderness of Sinai. And they camped in front of the mountain, Neged HaHar, in front of the mountain. Okay, that's what happened. So this is the time. Israel arrives at Sinai on the first day of the month of Sivan, the first day of the month of Sivan, the third month, because we read HaChodesh HaShalishi, the third month, and so the first day of the third month, the Israelites arrive at that Sinai. And then we have subsequently events unfolding. We read that Moses went up the mountain to God. Moshe ala el ha-Elohim. He went up to God. Vaikra elav Adonai min ha-har. And so Hashem called out to Moses from the mountain. Lemor, he said, Ko tomar livne Yaakov vehaged livne Israel. Say like this to the house of Jacob and speak or reveal it, disclose it to the children of Israel. So why is he using the two terms here? Beit Yaakov, which is the house of Jacob, and the children of Israel. So, people have different opinions about it. Some say Beit Yaakov refers to the women, where they were told softly, Tomar, whereas the Livnei Israel refers to the males, and they were told a little sternly, or, that's one opinion. Or it could be, one of the terms could be referring to all the people in general, and another term could be only for literal descendants of Jacob, could be, because they were mixed multitude. I'm not quite sure which one is it. This is a separate subject. But let's move on. The next day. So what happened? Next day is when Moses went up. They arrive on the day one. They went up. Moses goes up to the mountain of God. And on that mountain, God makes a proposal. So he said, say like this to the children of Israel, to the house of Jacob. Say like what? What should be said? This is what he said. See what I did to you in Egypt. I bore you on the wings of eagles. Say we read Kanafe Nesharim. That is wings of eagles, and brought you to me. And now if you will surely listen to my voice and keep my covenant, Im shamoa tishme'u bekoli, if you hear my voice, surely listen or hear my voice. Ushmartem et beriti, and if you observe or keep my covenant, vehitem li segula mikol ha'amim ki li kol ha'aretz. And so if you do this, then you will be a segula, a treasured possession, a peculiar treasure, as some translations put it, as a treasured possession out of all the peoples of this world, of this earth, because the whole earth is mine. Okay. And you shall be for me a kingdom of priests. Mamlechet Kohanim. Mamlechet Kohanim, kingdom of priests. Kohen does not always mean the priests in the general sense. It could also mean ministers, meaning they minister to God. For example, David's sons were called Kohanim. That doesn't mean they were serving in the temple, but they're serving God nevertheless on his behalf. And so that's a wider meaning here. Mamlechet Kohanim. And a holy nation, where a goy kadosh, holy nation. And you should speak all these words to them. So that's the proposal, he said. What are they supposed to do? If they do all of these, they will be a treasured possession, etc. Okay. Now, this does not mean that if they fail, then this goes altogether cancelled without any scope of returning back, so that he takes it away and gives it to another people. No, that's not what it is. God will surely punish, and they will no longer be treasured for certain time, you could say, but then he again brings them back when they, and makes them keep his voice, and when they listen to his voice, keep the covenant, they will again be a treasured possession. Segula. Okay, so that's what it is. So essentially, the keeping or not keeping the covenant will give them a status of in and out, but that doesn't mean it will be taken forever if they fail. That is not what it is. Now, on the third day, right? So this is what on the third day, what happened is Moses relays the response of Israel to God. So what did the Israelites say? The Israelites said, basically all the people replied and said, all that Hashem has spoken, we will do. Kol asher dibber Adonai na'aseh. All that Hashem has said, we will do. So this response was relayed by Moses back to God on the day 3. Right? Okay. And he said, and what did Hashem reply? And he said, he will come to Moses and will speak with him. See this thing? He says, Hashem said, and Moshe brought back people's word back to Hashem, he said. He brought back the word, and so Hashem said to Moses, behold, I am coming to you. Now this you is not plural, this is singular. Anochi ba alecha. Alecha, that is to Moses. So here is where we miss some of the nuances of the Hebrew text in the English translations. Unless, of course, if it is in the King James Bible, it may be thee. If I am coming to thee, then thee refers to Moses, not the children of Israel. He says, behold, I come to you, that is Moses, in the thickness of the clouds, so that the people may hear when I speak with thee, or with you, Moses, and they will believe also in you forever. So God is saying that I will come to you in the cloud, and I will speak with you, that is to Moses, and those words, when he speaks with Moses, will be heard by the people. And that is how they will believe Moses forever. This shows the couple of things. Okay, God says he'll come to Moses, speak with him in the singular, and the nation shall hear. And then they will believe also in you forever. That means that whatever he says while living, and whatever he has written after he died, well, whatever he has left in writing after his death, will be binding on them forever. So there is no question of the words of Moses not applicable to the children of Israel. Not at all. As long as there is sun and moon shining, as long as the system of the solar system is going on, God is going to have the nation of Israel, and these words are applicable to them. And so Moshe told the people's words to Hashem. So he relayed back basically that. And talking about how God said he will come to Moses in the cloud, it may not be necessarily like that spectacular thing on the mountain, though it might be. But then there were other occasions when God came to Moses in the cloud. When Moshe would come to the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and he would speak with Moshe. Meaning God comes like a pillar of cloud. You can't see anything but a pillar of cloud. It's a pillar of cloud. You know there is someone inside, but there is no human figure. It's like a pillar of cloud. And the pillar of cloud speaks with Moses. And the Israelites see that from far, and all the people see the pillar of cloud standing by the entrance of the tent. This is a personal tent of Moses, which he used for the purpose of divine service, where this is not open to all the Israelites. Only Joshua was there. And he used to communicate with God from this tent. And all the people would rise, and each would bow at the entrance of his own tent. So that's what used to happen. Now, when God said, I will come to Moses and he will speak with him, right? Moses obviously takes it back to the people, and according to the tradition, Israel objected and desired to receive the revelation directly. So there is an element of the fact that when God speaks to Moses, they will hear, but then they want to be told directly. That's what they said. At this stage, God says, all right. And so then he gives instructions. So this objection was communicated back to God, and God instructs Moses to sanctify the people, because now he's going to speak to them direct. Okay, because in the previous one he said, I will speak with you, the people will hear. They said, no, we want God to speak with us direct. He said, all right. And so for that, you need to be sanctified. And so God tells the sanctification, go to the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow. Hayom umachar. On the third day, Hashem will come down before the eyes of all the people of Mount Sinai, and you have to put a border so that people don't go to the mountain. No animal, no person should go, because it needs to be sanctified. Sanctified means keeping things to their particular use and not overlapping, plus taking care of all the precautions. This is like, people might wonder, so what is it? Like, why should not an animal go? Why should not people go? Why should they sanctify for 2 days, etc.? You know, if you have ever visited a nuclear plant or a nuclear facility, or for example, a highly, a medical manufacturing pharmaceutical facility where, certain key injections or drugs are being created in a closed environment. Okay, those places. Also in space industry, people come in a particular suit, so as not to contaminate. Even a speck of dust falling on a big mirror on a metallic sheet of, let's say, Hubble telescope will totally ruin the function of that one. It's technology. Similarly, if in the nuclear industry you do a lot of precaution and you wear a lot of things, and people cannot go all of them together. They have to go, a few people at once, and you can't stay too long. There is a limited amount of time. All that stuff. A lot of precautions are taken technologically, right? So that's exactly what God is teaching. When you are approaching Hashem, when you are dealing with Hashem, holiness is what is required. So why is Hashem not visible, not very clearly? Why is his glory not there in the temple at the moment? Although his name is present, but not the glory, because it's departed. The holiness standards are broken. So that's why, and he will come again, we read. And when that happens, this is an intersection of heaven into the earth, as it were. It will be massively different. And holiness is that is similar to that. That's what he's saying, sanctify. On the third day, Hashem will come down. Right? You have to set a border. And he says that Nobody should come here. Anybody, if they go, they will be put to death. And so, that's a deterrent. And when the horn is drawn, they shall go up the mountain. So some people understand this as when there was a signal shown, then the people can ascend the mountain to see God's presence. That is how some people understand, but that is not what it is. This long blast of horn indicates that it indicates the departure of the glory of the Shekinah. And then after God has departed from there, they can go up the mountain, not before that. That's the point is being made. So people were not supposed to go. And so he instructs them to sanctify the people for 2 days, today and tomorrow. So on the 4th and 5th of this month of Sivan, 2 days of sanctification. And here we read, here we jump into Exodus 24. Why we jump into Exodus 24? Because the Torah is not written in a chronological order. It is written thematically, because after chapter 19, which we were reading, chapter 19, this is chapter 19. Chapter 20 is 10 commandments and a couple of commandments. And after that, we have 21, 22, 23. They are called Mishpatim. Mishpatim are the different laws about this is called a covenant code. Once the covenant code gets finished, in chapter 24, we read about again background context of what had happened previously, more details about how they had to go up the mountain, who will go up finally, and some of the other things that happen. Okay. So people read this text differently. And so here we read that in 24, God said, go up to Moshe said, and to Moshe he said, God said, go up to Hashem, you and Aharon and Nadav Avihu. This is Aaron and his 2 sons, and all the 70 elders of Israel shall go, not the people, but they shall be at a distance. Moses alone shall approach Hashem. Okay. So basically God agreed to this. Well, he said he is going to speak to Moses, that he is going to stick with that, and he's going to speak to Moses. People are going to hear, but then he is giving a chance to people to hear as well directly, and he's telling them to sanctify. A slight change in the plan, as it were, because of the request. And where is the request, you might ask? Well, it's not there. So you could read it differently if you want. But it doesn't make really sense why the text is like this. Text sometimes gets difficult to understand. Okay, so I'm giving you just a very high overview here. So Moses alone shall approach Hashem, and they shall not approach, right? And they said, fine. And they said, all the words that Hashem has spoken, we will do. This happens in Exodus 24. And the reason is this. The Torah, as also the book of Exodus, they are thematically arranged. So sometimes you will see sections taken out differently, like for example this section, which explains the context of some of the earlier sections. It doesn't mean everything is chronological. Also, sometimes you will see parallel themes in the rows and parallel themes in the columns, etc. So this gentleman here, Moshe Klein, has done a wonderful work. He's got his book of Before Chapter and Verse, where he arranges the entire Torah like this in a structural format, and he explains, and he found a similar format in Mishnah as well. And he's also published some papers in Society of Biblical Literature. He's a good guy. So he's a good scholar. Hopefully, if possible, we could possibly get him an interview, if he agrees, but we'll see. So, Hashem instructs Moses to sanctify. That happened on the 5th day. The book of the covenant ratified. In the Exodus chapter 24, we also read that they ratified the book of the covenant. But the book of the covenant was, the Sinai covenant was made at chapter 6. On the 6th day, isn't it? Because we're going to come to 6th day, when actually God came down on that day. What is the book of covenant about? There is one opinion that it was all the laws that had been given until then. For example, in Exodus chapter 16, we see that God had told them about Sabbath and a few things, and then they already had certain judgments and certain mitzvot that he had already, mishpatim, hukim, mitzvot, that he had already told Abraham, Isaac, etc. So there are some practices which were already being practiced, additionally given also after Exodus and before Sinai. Those things were written and ratified, is one opinion, on the fifth day. This is where Exodus 24 is, and that's what Rashi says. But there are others who say, well, this actually contains additional, the Ten Commandments as well. Okay. Right. So, this is ratified, including what will come later on. That is true. So they agreed to that. The Book of the Covenant till that point contained whatever was known. That's one opinion. And then he says, to the people, be ready for the third day, do not approach a woman. And when you hear the strong and all the people basically what happened is that they had to be sanctified for day 4 and day 5, and no physical relationships, in order to ensure that there is no uncleanliness, and they must be holy. The holiness code is there in the book of Leviticus. How to approach and how to serve God. This is all like a quarantine process and taking safeguards and entering nuclear or high radiation or high, like in the medical space industry, the no-go zones where not everyone can go. That's what it's like. And on day 6, Hashem descends upon Sinai. Hashem descends upon Sinai. We read, Yarad alav Adonai ba'esh. Hashem came down upon it in the fire. And there were sounds of horns like the shofar, right? Why he called her shofar holech vechazek me'od, very strong. And here we read Moshe would speak and God would reply with a voice. So what is this? Moses speaks and God replies with a voice. It says, this one, what they are referring to apparently, is that we read later on that when God actually starts speaking, they say, well, we have heard enough, we can't hear enough, and then we want Moses to tell us. This was told after the first 2 commandments, apparently. So the remaining commandments were not direct. This is because of the synesthesia. They experienced God directly during the first 2 commandments, and they said, no, enough for us. Right? And so they said to Moses, you go, you hear, you tell us. Now, obviously, the next following chapter 21, 22, 23 of the Mishpatim, obviously Moses goes alone into the temple and stays 40 days, 40 nights and comes back. That's all fine. But the rest of the 10 commandments also have been apparently spoken by Moses, but they have been amplified by God so that they can be heard. So Moses hears and he repeats, but people cannot understand. Because Moses' voice wouldn't be as loud so as to be understood by 2 million, 3 million people. So here we see God would reply with a voice, and so God is amplifying it. That is how some people understand. But in any case, this is a very strange phenomenon here. And then Hashem came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and Hashem called Moshe to the top of the mountain, and Moshe went up. Okay. Right. Hashem said, what happened? See, he says Moshe went up, and then immediately he says, go down and warn the people lest they break through to Hashem to see many of them perish. So some people, this is all before again. This is all before. Now what is this? He is just telling what is happening, how the phenomenon happened. Right? And this verse is saying this verse is about Moses goes before the issuing of the 10 commandments. And then God says, well, go down immediately, tell them not to come up. And then Moses says, well, It says God. Moses says, well, he says, well, I already told them not to come up, etc. And Hashem says, no, go down immediately. That's in verse 23. Moses says. In verse 24, he says, go down and come up, you and Aharon with you, but the priests and the people should not break forth. So this is where we see Aaron. Aaron is our Aaron plus 2 sons, and the 70 elders. They're at different levels. They are there according to chapter 24. So they come up and Moses alone goes up. And so Moses comes down to tell these things to the people again, to prevent them not to go up. So Moses descends the mount to warn the people. Now, and then immediately you flip the page, chapter 20 starts, and God says, Anochi Adonai Elohecha asher hotzatika me'eretz Mitzrayim. Meaning, I am the Lord your God who has brought you out of the land. So he begins the first commandment, right? That's the first. It's not a commandment, it's a statement. People will wonder, I am the Lord thy God who has brought you from out of the land of Egypt is not a commandment. Correct. But those 10 commandments are not really commandments. The 10 sayings or 10 statements. Eseret Devarim. They are not mitzvot. Well, they can be, they are the remaining ones are mitzvot, but they are not called mitzvot when the word 10 is used. The 10 statements. And so it includes the first one, I am the Lord thy God, who has brought you out of the land of Egypt. So he begins in chapter 20. And so where was Moses when the 10 sayings were given? That's a very interesting question. So some say he was down. Moses ascends again, says Ibn Ezra, right? Rashi says Moses was with the people. So there is again a bit of a difference in terms of understanding of the text because the text is so complicated. Okay, there is another one which says Moses ascended according to Exodus 24. Right? This is or.edu. They have a very detailed, sequence of events. I've given very high level approximation here. They have a very detailed sequence of events starting from the first day of this month. What is this month? Sivan. Until the 10th of Tishrei, which is the Day of Atonement. In between, there are 2 periods of 40 days and 40 nights where Moses is up on the mountain. And at the end of that period, on the 10th of Tishrei, on the Day of Atonement, Moses comes down with his face glowing, and people see the glowing face. The whole period is clearly transcribed and clearly, sequenced by these people here on this website. Is a Jewish website. Okay, coming back to synesthesia then. So what is this synesthesia? Synesthesia is like this. Here we read in Exodus chapter 20, verse 14. In some Hebrew Bibles, it could be like verse 19 or 20. You can find out this verse, okay? And all the people were seeing the voices, kolot, the thunder, right? Seeing the thunder and the flashes you can see, and the sound of the horn. They were seeing, not hearing. It's not a hearing. And they heard the words of God, but they saw the voices and the sound of the horn as well. And they got terrified. They were trembled and they stood at a distance. And they said to Moshe, you speak with us and we will listen, and let not God speak with us lest we die. This apparently was told, although this is written at the end of the 10 Commandments, right? It was apparently told after 2 statements were given. And then what happened was, like I showed you another verse in chapter 19 where Moses was speaking and God amplified his voice, or God spoke to Moses. That particular verse we read, that is the mechanism through which they heard. That's one understanding. Well, we could take our own understanding, but even if you read it literally as though they are in sequence, if you try reading it literally exactly as though they are in sequence, you'll have a bit of a difficulty in making sense of the text. If you continuously read from chapter 19 onwards through to, let's say, 34, try to make sense of the text. It's a very difficult thing. So synesthesia is how it works. So we see the sights, we hear the sounds, we taste the flavor, we smell the fragrance, and we feel the textures, right? So these are the senses, and what comes into the senses, they're all aligned. This is the normal experience. But there are people who do often experience different things. Like, for example, in what happened on the Mount Sinai was they saw the sounds. So they saw the sound. Now just imagine somebody looks at the screen and looks at these, and they hear, well, no, you can say hear as in my voice. Suppose they taste, oh, this slide tastes bitter, the other slide tastes sweet, right? And the next slide tastes spicy. What do you mean? That's synesthesia. Well, does it exist? Well, maybe not taste. But I think what happens is if you overwhelm the senses with high intensity signals, then the certain parts of the brain which are supposed to decode these signals, they get overlapped, and you will see the sounds, you will see the flavor, and you will taste the sound, you will smell the sound, and all those cross connections can happen. That is what is synesthesia. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please do like the video and subscribe to my channel. Click the bell icon. Also do comment below, and I will see you with another video as soon as I can. Thank you very much.